Imagine walking into a store, expecting nothing more than a simple errand, only to be humiliated and tossed out without any explanation. The feeling of being wronged washes over you, but it's more than that. It's the sting of rejection, the humiliation of being singled out and treated unfairly, simply because of who you are. You're left standing there, in disbelief, as the person who rejected you doesn't even look back. They don't apologize. They don't acknowledge the hurt they've caused. But what happens next? That's where it gets unbelievable. The same person, the one who kicked you out, now finds themselves forced to confront their own lies. They can no longer hide behind a veil of ignorance. The truth is too loud to ignore. What they've done can't be erased. And soon, the entire world will know. The truth can't be buried any longer, and what happens after that will make you question everything. Would she, the person who was wronged, walk away quietly, letting the injustice slide? Or would she stand her ground, fight back, and expose the truth in a way no one would ever forget? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that expose the hidden truths of our society. Fay Eastman-Adams, a woman who, on that fateful day, didn't let injustice slide. She wasn't just a witness. She was about to become a force of change. Fay, an African-American woman, was simply going about her day on a typical Sunday afternoon in the Bay Area. It was supposed to be like any other day. Fay, like so many of us, just wanted to take a break from her hectic life. She was looking for something simple, a peaceful afternoon of shopping. Little did she know, that calm afternoon was about to be shattered by an act of racism, something so blatant and shocking it would fuel her to take action. It all began at Cornology, a popcorn shop nestled in the Bay Street shopping center in Emeryville. A local shop, nothing extraordinary about it, nothing that hinted at the injustice that was about to unfold. Fay walked in, just like any other customer. She wasn't expecting to witness anything unusual. The sun was still high, the shopping center bustling with families, friends, and people enjoying their weekend. Fay, in that moment, just wanted a break, maybe a sweet snack, a moment to herself. But within minutes of stepping inside, things began to shift. What started as a simple, quiet afternoon would soon push Fay into a situation where she had to make a choice: stay silent, or confront the ugliness of racism head-on. It would be a moment that ignited a fire inside her, one that she couldn't ignore, and one that would set a chain of events into motion that no one could have predicted. Fay never imagined that what she was about to witness would push her to take action, to challenge a lie that was about to unfold right in front of her. It was an injustice that no one should ever have to face, but when it happened, she made a decision, one that would eventually force a man to admit his lies, to face his actions, and to realize the consequences of his choices. In that moment, Fay would no longer be just another shopper. She would be the one who spoke up when no one else would. She would be the one to uncover the truth. It started like any other day. The sun was still high, the air warm, and the Bay Street shopping center was alive with the usual weekend bustle. Fay and her friends walked into Cornology, the popcorn shop, with no expectations of anything other than a relaxing afternoon. They had no idea they were about to witness something that would shake them to their core. The door chimed as they entered, the familiar sound of the store welcoming them in. But as soon as Fay stepped inside, something didn't feel right. She couldn't quite place it, but there was an unease in the air. The shop was quiet, but it didn't have the usual relaxed vibe. A group of about a dozen African-American teens walked in behind her. They didn't look like trouble. They were simply there to grab a snack, just like everyone else. But before anyone could even take a breath, everything changed. Mark Stone, the owner of the shop, locked eyes with the group. His face twisted, and without any warning, his hands flew up in the air in frustration. Fay watched in disbelief as his body language shifted from mild irritation to full-blown aggression. His eyes, once calm, now burned with something entirely different, something unfamiliar, something dangerous. Then, in an instant, he shouted, "Get out! Get out of my store!" Don't come back here. The words came out in a furious torrent, and Fay's stomach sank as the scene unfolded before her. She froze, her heart pounding in her chest, as she watched Mark Stone chase after the teens, yelling at them with increasing hostility. And then, as if those words weren't enough, he crossed a line. He hurled the most painful, most venomous slur imaginable, the N-word. The sound of it hung in the air like poison. The teens, stunned and unsure how to react, turned to leave, their heads down, trying to avoid confrontation. Fay couldn't believe what she was seeing. She felt a wave of anger rush through her as the injustice of the moment hit her full force. She glanced around, looking for any sign of reason, but the store was eerily silent except for the harshness of Mark's voice. Fay stepped forward, feeling her heart race with both disbelief and fury. I couldn't believe it, Fay recalls, her voice still shaken by the memory. He just started screaming at them. I didn't even see the teens do anything wrong. They were just standing there. No one was causing any trouble. They were just there. Her words were filled with a sense of utter disbelief. How could this happen? How could anyone treat a group of teenagers like that, based solely on the color of their skin? What was it about their presence that made him react this way? But Fay didn't just stand there. She couldn't. The injustice, the hate, the unnecessary cruelty of it all, it was too much. She had to act. She had to speak up. And as she stood there, watching those teens walk out with their heads low, she made a promise to herself. This wasn't just something she could walk away from. This wasn't a situation that could be swept under the rug. Fay couldn't let it slide. She couldn't let Mark Stone get away with his actions, pretending like everything was okay. No, she would confront this. She would find a way to make sure this injustice was not forgotten. The tension in the air thickened, the weight of the moment pulling her in. She wasn't just a witness anymore. She was part of something much bigger. The story was only just beginning. As Fay watched this unfold, her disbelief quickly turned to anger. The injustice of it all. How could anyone treat another human being with such cruelty, simply because of who they were? Her mind raced, trying to make sense of what she had just witnessed. But the worst part? Mark Stone didn't even apologize. He didn't express any remorse for his words or actions. Not once. Instead, he doubled down. The moment the teens had left, Mark stood behind the counter, his arms folded and his face set in a defiant scowl. He didn't seem bothered by what had just happened. In fact, he seemed proud of it, as if what he'd done was justified. He began defending himself, justifying his outburst as if it were completely acceptable. Well, those kids have been a problem before. I was just fed up. They've stolen from me, vandalized my store. His words echoed in Fay's ears, but they didn't make sense. What are you talking about? Fay thought to herself. No one had stolen anything that day, and she certainly hadn't seen any signs of vandalism. Mark was grasping at straws, trying to make the situation fit his narrative, but it was clear to Fay he wasn't apologizing. He wasn't admitting any wrongdoing. He was trying to cover his tracks, to make his behavior seem rational, as if his actions were somehow justified. Determined to confront him, Fay couldn't just stand by and let him make excuses. She took a step forward, her frustration mounting. She had to say something, had to call out the lie he was feeding her. Why are you making these accusations? They didn't steal anything, she said, her voice steady but filled with the weight of the truth. Why are you treating them like this? But Mark wasn't listening. His eyes narrowed, and his face twisted further into anger. They've been nothing but trouble for me, he snapped, his voice rising with each word. You don't understand. I've been robbed multiple times, by kids like them. I'm just tired of it. Fay shook her head, disbelief still painting her expression. How could he sit there, making these accusations with no evidence? How could he be so blind to the reality of what he was doing? Mark wasn't the victim here. He was the aggressor. At that moment, Fay knew she couldn't let it go. She had to make him understand that this wasn't just about a few rowdy kids. This was about the hurtful, racist words he had used. She had to make sure that his actions didn't go unchallenged. Fay's pulse quickened, but she refused to back down. She wasn't just fighting for those teens anymore. She was fighting for what was right. And as she stood there, staring Mark Stone down, it became clear he had no intention of backing down either. This was about to escalate. Fay was determined to hold Mark accountable for his actions. She couldn't just let it end there, with him spouting lies and refusing to take responsibility. No, she needed something more, something that would force him to face the truth and show the community just what kind of person he really was. So, Fay did something unexpected. She went undercover. A few days later, Fay found herself standing outside Cornology once more. The doors of the popcorn shop before her, this time with a plan. She wasn't just a bystander anymore. She was on a mission to gather evidence to expose the lies Mark Stone had been telling. Armed with the knowledge that his accusations were fabricated, she stepped inside, her heart pounding in her chest, but her resolve unwavering. She looked around, pretending to be just another regular customer, taking in the familiar sight of the shelves stacked high with popcorn. But now, with a new purpose, Fay's eyes were sharp, scanning every corner, every detail. She knew what she had seen the first time, Mark's behavior, his lies. But now she needed the truth, the proof that would show the world exactly who he was. Fay moved through the store casually, making her way around the counter, as Mark watched her with his usual cold stare. He didn't recognize her, not yet, but she recognized him, his nervous fidgeting, his forced smile. There was something different about him this time. His eyes darted around, as though he was waiting for something to happen. He was on edge, just as he had been when he had chased those teens out, but now it was clear. He was worried. Why? Because Fay was there, watching him, and he didn't know what she had up her sleeve. As she stood there, listening to Mark's interactions with the other customers, Fay couldn't help but notice the inconsistencies in his stories. He had claimed that the teens were troublemakers, that they had stolen from him, vandalized his store. But as Fay observed, nothing seemed out of place. The store was still intact. No damage. No missing items. It was just a regular day, just like it had been the first time she walked in. The pieces started to fall into place. Mark's claims didn't add up. The teens hadn't done anything wrong. They were simply there, trying to buy popcorn. His accusations were just a smokescreen, a cover-up for the real issue, his deep-seated racism. He wasn't upset about theft or vandalism. He was upset because a group of black teens had dared to walk into his store, and that, in his mind, was enough to justify his outburst. Fay's mind raced as she put everything together. Mark wasn't telling the truth. He wasn't just angry at some imaginary thieves. He was trying to cover up his own racist behavior. He had used the teens' presence as an excuse to unleash his bigotry, to make them feel unwelcome simply because of their skin color. I had to go back and see for myself, Fay said in an interview, her voice calm but filled with the weight of what she had uncovered. And when I did, I realized Mark wasn't telling the truth. He was lying to cover up his racist behavior. Fay knew then that she couldn't walk away. The truth was too important to ignore. Mark's lies were being exposed for what they truly were, and Fay was the one to uncover them. This wasn't just about a racist outburst. It was about holding someone accountable for their actions, for their words, and for the harm they caused. And Fay was ready to make sure the world knew the truth. After exposing Mark's lies, Fay didn't hesitate. She took to Facebook, sharing everything, the confrontation, the racist slurs, and the lies that Mark had tried to cover up. She made sure to detail the hurt caused by his actions, how it wasn't just about one incident, but about the deep, painful truth that racism still lurked in the most unexpected places. Her post was a raw account of what she had witnessed and a powerful call for accountability. It didn't take long for her words to catch fire. Her post went viral, spreading like wildfire across social media. People from all walks of life, from the local community to people thousands of miles away, started reacting, commenting, sharing, and expressing their outrage. It wasn't just a black community that stood in solidarity. It was everyone who could recognize the injustice, who understood that what Mark Stone did wasn't just an isolated incident. It was part of a much larger pattern that needed to be addressed. The outrage was swift. People were demanding answers, demanding accountability. The conversation couldn't be ignored any longer. It had moved from a quiet confrontation in a popcorn shop to a full-blown discussion that had to be reckoned with. The pressure was building, and Mark had no choice but to face the consequences of his actions. In a final attempt to save face, Mark Stone appeared on camera, a look of defeat in his eyes. He knew the damage had been done. He knew there was no undoing the pain he had caused. "I regret what I said," he said, his voice sounding defeated, almost broken. It was in the heat of the moment, but there's no excuse for using those words. "I'm sorry to the black community for my actions." His apology, though sincere in its own way, came too late to undo the harm. The damage had already been done, and the community's trust had been shattered. But that wasn't the only part of this story. The real impact came from Fay's courage to speak out, to stand up when no one else would. By exposing the truth, she didn't just confront Mark's racism. She brought an important conversation about accountability into the spotlight. Fay's action sparked a ripple effect. It wasn't just about one man's apology. It was about the larger issue that needed to be addressed. It was about making sure that people knew they could no longer turn a blind eye to these injustices. It was about the power of one person, standing up and demanding that the truth be heard. And in that moment, Fay made a difference, not just for herself or the teens who were wronged, but for the entire community. Her bravery opened the door for conversations that needed to be had, and it reminded everyone that racism, no matter how subtle or overt, could never be allowed to go unchecked. What do you think about Fay's actions? Would you have had the courage to do the same thing? Would you have stood up against racism, even if it meant going undercover to expose the truth, risking everything for what's right? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. How would you have handled the situation? I'd love to hear your perspective. And if you found this story powerful, if it made you think about the importance of standing up against injustice, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We've got more incredible stories like this coming your way. Stories that challenge the status quo and inspire change. Make sure to hit that notification bell so you never miss an important story. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.